What's up guys, Card Protagonist here. Today I'll be doing a deck profile on Yuga's Magic World Dramagi deck from the brand new Climax booster Golden Garga. My favourite Dragod variant is definitely Dramagi. With Magic World incredible spells to counter even the toughest deck in the meta, Dramagi has become one of the top decks of the current meta. It also has a powerful draw engine which allows the fighter to secure combo pieces it needs, maintaining great consistency and power. And with regionals around the corner, learning about this powerful deck will definitely help you better prepare against it. So let's jump right into the deck profile. For the buddy, I'll be using Garga Dragon because it allows you to use Dragods from different worlds. And they're Dragods from different worlds such as Dragon World and Star Dragon World, which you really want to add into your deck to strengthen your deck. For the monsters, we play 4 copies of Garga Dragon because it allows you to use Dragods from different worlds. Shin Garga also have the DG Evolve ability, which allows you to draw, then evolve into different forms, which is really important because drawing an extra card gives you a wider option, so they can G-Evolve into different units. And its ability to revert is also very powerful, which allows you to gain extra attacks. So 4 copies of Garga Dragon because it's staple in all Dragod decks right now. Next up, 3 copies of Blade Mage. He is one of the MVP of the deck and what makes Magic World very unique compared to the other variants. With Magic World Counter Speed spell, you will be able to control your opponent's board, and with monsters having a huge impact of the game right now, having the ability to destroy monsters and controlling the opponent's board is very important. Whenever you cast a spell, you can destroy a monster on your opponent's field, which is great because you'll be able to control your opponent's monsters and deplete his resources. And one reason why this card is very powerful in this deck is because your win condition is not only beat down, you'll be able to deal huge burn damage by simply returning 6 spells, which is very easy for this deck. So at the end of the battle of this card attacks, if you have a soul with G-Evolve in it, you can return 6 different spells if you deal 5 damage to your opponents. This is basically impact level damage and it's incredibly powerful. So he's also an optimal first turn play because after G-Evolving into him, you'll be able to control it during your opponent's turn, therefore giving you huge survivability. So 3 copies of Blade Mage. Next up, 3 copies of Sonic Mode. A staple in pretty much most of the Dragod's builds. When this card enters the field, you can gain 2 life, and when this card enters the field by G-Evolve, you can draw 2 extra cards. It's just there mostly for the draw power. Having those counter spells in your hand gives you a lot of advantage and control over opponents. So 3 copies of Sonic Mode because it's an excellent first turn play. And the last Dragod we play is 3 copies of Space Garga, aka Quasar. Quasar is an excellent balance between offense and defense. With his ability to fetch 2 cards whenever you G-Evolve into it, it's an excellent advantage engine. And also during battle phase, you'll be able to do a triple attack penetrate for a total of 9 critical damage. So overall 3 copies because of its versatility. Now for the Dragod Trio, we play 2 copies of Magic Cat. When this card enters the field, you'll be able to look top 3 cards of the deck and add 1 spell, rest goes to the bottom of the deck. So its ability is not once per turn, so you can call it multiple times, but be careful of loyalty. Next up is 2 copies of Magidog. Magidog is really good because it allows you to ditch 1 DDT monster to charge 1 and draw 2 cards, increasing your hand size and gauge acceleration. So I decided to play 2-2 in my deck because I love them both. Now let's go on to the most important part of the deck, the spells. First up, we play 4 copies of Examinate. This is one of the best Dragod spells in my opinion, because you can only cast this card when you have Dragod on the field. Check the top 3 cards of the deck, 1 goes to hand, 1 goes to gauge, and 1 goes to the drop. So not only you'll be gaining some advantage, you'll also be able to refuel your drop zone for different spells, so that you can use Blade Mage ability to deal extra damage. And also Holy Magic, which allows you to gain advantage and deal burn depending on how many different spells you have in your drop zone. It's a counter speed, so you'll be able to use it during your turn and your opponent's turn. And with Blade Mage, you'll be able to do some control. So overall, we play 4 copies of this card because it's never dead and it can be used during your opponent's turn and your turn. Next series of counter spells is 4 copies of Sephiroth Lecture. Sephiroth Lecture is a very powerful card in the deck as well because of counter speed, and having the ability to turbo on the top 2 cards of the deck is just amazing. You may only cast this spell if you have casted a spell during this turn, so most of the time we follow up after Examinate or Nice One. Look at the top 2 cards of the deck, choose 1 to add to your hand and 1 to your gauge. So not only you'll be adding a card to your hand, you'll be able to excel gauge as well. Excellent at 4 because it can be used during your turn and your opponent's turn. Next up, 3 copies of everyone's favorite spell, Nice One. I really love the Garga art and Yuga's art because it's really cute. So pay 1 gauge to draw 2 extra cards to speed up the deck. Excellent choice. However, I dropped it to 3 because this is not counter speed and I favor counter speed since Blade Mage does all the work in the meta right now. Here we have 3 copies of the G-Evolve spell, allowing you to mode switch from the drop zone. So paying 1 gauge to mode switch during your opponent's turn and your turn is great. So your turn for extra attacks and your opponent's turn to switch modes. So that you miss an attack, you gain advantage through their G-Evolve and gain extra soul. Makes you extra tanky, it gives you extra stats, extra 5k attack, 5k defense, which is always nice. Now for dual spells, play 2 copies of Holy Magic. This promo card is absolutely amazing in all Magic World decks. This card rewards you for casting a lot of advantage gaining spells, which I really like. So what this card does is return 3 or more spells from your drop zone to your deck and shuffle it. If you do, charge 2 gauge. If you return 3, gain 2 life. Then if you return 6 or more, draw 2 cards. If you return 9 or more, deal 3 damage to the opponent. So if you return 9, you'll be able to deal 3 to the opponent, draw 2 cards, gain 2 gauge, gain 2 life. However, most of the time I actually return 6 to 9, and I highly recommend you only cast this card when you have 6 or more different in the drop zone so that you can properly plus off this card. And also this card is a first turn kill enabler because you do play the impact in the deck. So yeah, 2 copies is just fine, 3 copies tend to clog a lot, so I maintain it at 2. Next up, 2 copies of Loyalty. With this meta being so core heavy, this card is a must-have in your deck to keep your opponent's core in check. So the main user of this card is to keep your opponent's core in check so that you can't call more than 3 monsters, and also against mirror match against other Dragods. If they were to revert, you can counter Loyalty and remove the soul so they won't be able to revert. This is a power play against most of the Dragod decks, and I highly recommend too because it's so good in the current meta right now. 2 copy of Best Bounce Spell Warrior, so you can cast this card if 3 more different spells in the drop zone. Bounce back a card on your opponent's field. Against Amaterasu, it's an instant win, and it kind of bypasses Vanity, Heart Destroy, and Destruction. And Warrior is definitely one of the best control spells. 2 copies of Terracale. This is a multi-purpose card which allows you to control or gain extra offense. So its cast cost of 1 life, 1 gauge. You can only cast this card once per turn, so do take note. Counter ability. Either stand up to 1 Dragod or 1 item on the field, or rest up to 2 cards on your opponent's field. This card is a lifesaver against Mystic Knights because your monsters tend to swing for high critical and you really want them rested. And also a must main in this deck because Dragods tend to die to rest, and since if they are rested, they won't be able to G-Evo. So if your Dragod were to be rested, you can actually use Terracare and restand, and you can swing and G-Evo. And even if not rested, you can also restand it to swing for extra 3 damage, which we all welcome. 2 copies for its balance of offense and defense. Next, one of my favorite spells, God Magic Next Send. This card is god tier in the meta right now, just for the fact that it allows you to nullify your opponent's ability at counter speed. So you may only cast this card if Dragod on a field. Cast cost is paying 1 gauge. Counter ability, choose one out of 2. Either for this turn, a monster on opponent's field loses 5k attack, 5k defense, and 1 critical, or for this turn, nullify all abilities of a monster on opponent's field. So if your opponent were to use Shinji Evo, nullify it, they won't be able to draw, they can't evolve, they are stuck right there. So this card is extremely powerful in meta right now because there are so many powerful monster effects, and you really want to stop that at counter speed. And even if your opponent does not have any abilities to nullify, you can also use it as a negate because it lowers your opponent's crits and power. And to combo with this card, we play 1 copy of God Magic First Try. This card allows you to charge 2 gauge, then salvage 1 Next Send from the drop zone. So after you cast a Next Send, by nullifying 1 monster ability, you can just cast this back and add it back to your hand and charge 2 gauge for free. We play 1 copy in the deck because we want to have multiple different spells in the drop zone so they can use it with Blade Mage. Now here are the one-offs. Teaching of the Fighting Emperor. So charge gauge equals the number of DDT on the field, and if a Dragod on the field, draw 1 card. So most of the time we'll be charging 2 gauge and drawing 1 card. It's mostly there for the gauge adding and speeding up your deck, and being a one-off is very important because it counts as a different spell in the drop zone. 1 copy of No Pain, No Gain. So cast cost, pay 2 gauge, draw 2 cards and discard a card from your hand. This card is mostly used for dumping stuff in the drop zone so they have multiple different types of spells in the drop zone while filling up your hand size. Gauge is never a problem with this deck because we gain so much resources such as draw and gauge, so this card's more like no pain or gain. 1 copy of Set Spell Circle, very useful for retrieving spells from the drop zone. Some of the spells I really love to fetch back from the drop zone is these 3. Examinate because it gives you extra pluses. Several Lecture just in case you already have Examinate in your hand. And of course G-Evo spell because having the extra G-Evo for extra attack and defense is always welcome in my hand. 1 copy of Bird Magic Experimental. Really love the art, it's cute. You may only cast this card if you have 3 or more spells in the drop zone. So counter ability, use one of the following effects. So you have 2 effects to choose from. Either stand a monster on your field, or for this turn, all cards on opponent's field gets -3k attack, 3k defense, and 1 crit. So if you're fighting against multi-attacks, you can lower their crit so they'll be punching you for smaller beats. Or resending a unit, which is great with Blade Mage because I tend to have a lot of different spells in the drop zone, and I can pull off Blade Mage ability twice. Attack, return 6, resend with Bird Magic, attack 1 more time, return 6 more. Getting 12 in the drop zone is a piece of cake with this deck. 1 copy of Protect Magic, aka the Godly Frying Pan. So this is one of the best dragon shields in the game. Even if you have a center, you can cast this card. Cast cost, return a spell from drop zone to the bottom of the deck. So you can return your common spell such as your nice one and Examinate back to your deck. Or you can return some cards that you really want to see later on in the game. Nullify attack, then charge 1 gauge, gain 1 life, and draw a card. And 1 copy of Abracadabra. And the main reason why I'm dropping this card to 1 is because most of the important spell right now is being chained to your effects, and most of the good players in my locals tend to chain their abilities to your effects, so you won't be able to spell down them. So most of the time I find spell downs quite dead. However, I do have them in your side deck, just in case I fight against deck that's very spell heavy. Right now I play 1 and it actually worked fine for me. And finally, for the impact, we play 2 copies of Shin Gargantua Punisher Magic World. This is one of the best Gargantua Punisher because it is a very cheap cost of 2 gauge and casting a spell of its turn, which Magic World deck doesn't cast a spell anyway. So this is one of the most consistent Shin Punishers we have in the game right now. Just attack, return 6, burn 5, even if the attack does not hit, you can just end off your opponent by paying 2 gauge and using the Punisher. I tested this deck in huge tournaments and it worked really well. So 2 copies of Shin Punisher is fine. If you're afraid of it being dead in the hand, do not worry because we have Magic Dog, and this has the DDT attribute so they can discard with Magic Dog to charge 1, draw 2. So 2 copies of Shin Punisher. So I hope you guys enjoy my deck profile of Yuga's Dramagi deck. If you have any questions regarding any of these decks, leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to help. Also, if you're looking for decks like these, do support me by checking out my online shop, www.cardprotagonist.com. Links are in the description box down below. We mail worldwide right to your doorstep. So till next time, keep on buddy fighting!